under. Occasionally, there's an item that I come across that just makes me sit up and immediately pay attention. There's been rather a lot of these recently, but today it was this item from this morning's Guardian. So this is the headline: Scientists shocked by Arctic permafrost thawing 70 years sooner than predicted. I started writing with a fairly conventional view on climate change back in 2011, but then in 2012, early, I encountered the work of Guy McPherson and his large climate change essay, and that was back in 2012. That was the year that I learnt about a constantly increasing number of positive self-reinforcing feedbacks that's been increasing and increasing. And by 2013, I was able to write this, based on Guy's work, Habitat, reflecting on anthropogenic climate change and near-term extinction. And it was that unique idea that's come from Guy that rapid human warming, global warming is going to make it impossible to grow grains at scale and therefore lead to the human extinction. So what's changed since then? Well, we've had a huge acceleration in global warming, Arctic ice melt and related weather events, which has been shown by the huge number of media articles on this, finally. But still, we get things like this from someone who I'd imagined had more sense, saying it's 50-50% chance that we get a hothouse or an ice age. I just fail how anyone could reach that conclusion based on the evidence that's coming out now of all times. And then there's this, the Orwellian. It shows that the human mind can turn any palpably demonstrable or provable truth on its head and say the opposite. I think George Orwell knew all about that. I've witnessed all the stoushes with the new denialists, those that argue that climate change is real and not imminent, but somehow way off in 2100. And what comes to mind is a few years back, this argument that we had with a site called Climate Change Facts of the Day, and all of us that were the so-called alarmist, we were all excommunicated. So how are people going to deal with this this headline? Scientists shocked by the Arctic permafrost thawing 70 years sooner than predicted. Are they going to pretend that they didn't say what they said? Oh, we never said that. Or are they going to double down on their optimistic views and blame the media for fake news? I've seen that one before. Or are they going to perversely claim that the alarmists who have been shouting from the rooftops about the imminent nature of this and about positive feedback since at least 2012, are they going to claim that Guy McPherson, the one devil incarnate, and others that come in his wake somehow brought it about because he or we wanted it? Well, such is the nature of the insanity that abounds and the nature of the liberal mind that I would not be in the least surprised. So let's just see. I can't remember what I've got here. Oh no. Wait a minute. Yeah. So I've been adding my voice to the warnings for almost 77 years now, while being aware of the seriousness for a lot longer than that. I've been rabbiting on about this all this time, shouting from the rooftops like some Old Testament prophet. And I've probably been a party pooper with my prognostications. In fact, I'm certain I have. Unfortunately, I was right. Guy McPherson was right. Kevin Hester was right. Jennifer Hines was right. Paul Beckwith was right. Margot is right. And there's a relatively short list of other people who I can't name. So we've all been right, and this headline proves it. So I just wonder how folks are going to deal with that. In relationship to the Guardian article, I can say I'm shocked, but not in the least surprised. Now, I got the order of slides as wrong as usual. Somehow they seem to disappear. But I just came across this today. I wonder what other nonsense they can come up with in this conference. I'd love to be a fly on the wall. So we've had so many scores of articles saying faster than previously expected, earlier or greater than expected. I even heard one professor down in the local library, well-known glaciologist, say that this was all media hype as he backed off his own previous work and his own evidence to provide a nice, hopeful vision of planting trees and so forth. And anyway, this is not going to hit us until 2100. So what's he going to be thinking privately behind his own four walls? And now we learn that scientists are shocked that all of this is happening 70 years earlier than they previously thought. That's 3 generations, folks. 3 generations. And they got it wrong. Yeah, just a minor detail, eh? Well, I would just like to go through this and one other article and examine some more material that has come through in the last day or so. But none of this is old news. So let's go back to this article from this morning's Guardian. Ice blocks frozen solid for thousands of years destabilized. The climate is now warmer than at any time in the last 5,000 years. Permafrost at outposts in the Canadian Arctic is thawing 70 years earlier than predicted, an expedition has discovered, in the latest sign that the global climate crisis is accelerating even faster than scientists had feared. A team from the University of Alaska Fairbanks said that they were astounded by how quickly a succession of unusually hot summers had destabilized the upper layers of the giant subterranean ice blocks that had been frozen solid for millennia. What we saw was amazing, Vladimir Romanovsky, a professor of geophysics at the university, told Reuters. It's an indication that the climate is now warmer than at any time in the last 5,000 or more years. With governments meeting in Bonn this week to try and ratchet up ambitions in the United Nations climate negotiations, the team's findings, published on 10th of June in Geophysical Research Letters, offered a further sign of a growing climate emergency. The paper was based on data Romanovsky and his colleagues had been analysing since their last expedition to the area in 2016. The team used a modified propeller plane to visit exceptionally remote sites, including an abandoned Cold War-era radar base more than 300 kilometres from the nearest human settlement. Diving through a lucky break in the clouds, Romanovsky and his colleagues said that they were confronted with a landscape that was unrecognisable from the pristine Arctic terrain they had encountered during initial visits a decade or so earlier. The vista had dissolved in an undulating sea of hummocks, waist-high depressions and ponds known as thermokarst. Vegetation, once sparse, had begun to flourish in the shelter provided by the constant wind. Torn between professional excitement and foreboding, Romanovsky said the scene had reminded him of the aftermath of a bombardment. It's a canary in the coal mine, said Louise Farquharson, a postdoctoral researcher and co-author of the study. It's very likely that this phenomenon is affecting a much more extensive region, and that's what we're going to look at next. Scientists are concerned about the stability of permafrost because of the risk that rapid thawing could release vast quantities of heat-trapping gases, unleashing a feedback loop that would in turn fuel even faster temperature rises. So don't even mention methane. Even if current commitments to cut emissions under the 2015 Paris Agreement are implemented, the world is still far from averting the risk that these kinds of feedback loops will trigger runaway warming, according to models used by the UN-backed IPCC. Now, how long did I have to wait for the media? I mean, admittedly, this is The Guardian, but how long did I have to wait to hear this feedback loops mentioned? With scientists warning that sharply higher temperatures would devastate the global south and threaten the viability of industrial civilization in the northern hemisphere. Yes, and that. Campaigners said the new paper reinforced the imperative to cut emissions, blah, blah, blah. Thawing permafrost is one of the tipping points for climate breakdown, and it's happening before our very eyes. So again, we're talking about tipping points. That's not been mentioned much in the mass media, said Jennifer Morgan, Executive Director of Greenpeace International. This premature thawing is another clear signal that we must decarbonize our economies, and immediately. So let's look at this item first of all. This has just sort of come out. This is a tweet from someone called Stefan M. Olsen. Communities in Greenland rely on sea ice for transport, hunting and fishing. Extreme events here, flooding by the ice by abrupt onset of surface melt, calls for increased predictive capacity in the Arctic. And it's a retweet of something from Rasmus Tonbo. Got the difficult task of retrieving our oceanographic moorings and weather station on sea ice in northwest Greenland this year. Rapid melt and sea ice with low permeability and few cracks leaves the meltwater on top. So let's just go on and look at a TV item from Euronews on this.
Arctic Ocean have observed unprecedented levels of ice melting in the past few days, which has generated significant conversation on social media, mostly around one viral photo. Rosie Wright and our team in the Cube have more.
This looks like dogs walking on water. The reality is the ice sheet that they're supposed to be walking on is hidden underneath this meltwater. This is in northwestern Greenland. And this photo that's been shared online has gone viral, sparking concerns about the rapid rate at which the ice is melting. These scientists were just trying to go out and collect some equipment when this is what they were faced with. And if we have a look from space down at this area, we can see the gravity of the problem. They monitor from space kind of Europe's land masses, and you can see here reporting that actually we're seeing these larger bodies of water that just simply shouldn't be there. Why? Particularly because we're seeing temperature increases. And this graph lays out very clearly the scale of the water that we're seeing, which is developing as that ice melts here. We can see ice water melt tracked. This was in 2012. This blue line here is 2019. And just look here, we're seeing record levels of ice melting earlier than it ever has done before. Why is that? It's in part because of the temperature. Now, last Wednesday, the temperature recorded was 40 degrees higher than normal. That is clearly causing concern. Above average temperatures across the entire Arctic being reported here. And the consequences of that could be very severe. We spoke to Professor Jason Box, who's an ice climatist. He explained what the consequences of this melting ice might be.
Greenland ice melt is significant because it contributes to accelerating sea level rise and the disruption of North Atlantic thermohaline. This extra fresh water that's flooding into the North Atlantic is disrupting ocean circulation patterns, and we don't fully understand the consequences.
So apologies for the quality of that there. But the thing is, it's not just about ocean circulation and currents. It's also about the people living there as well, as the scientist who took that photo reported.
So let's just have a look at this. This is NASA World View. So this is Greenland here. And we'll just go in. So you can see that the ice has gone. That's the sea ice right up this west side. And this is northwest Greenland. I mean, it's very hard to determine exactly where this is, but it gives a sense. Look at all the ice, it's gone. Anyway, that really gives quite a picture. This from the Big Wobble. Astonishing temperatures hit Kuwait with highs of 52.2 degrees Celsius, that's 126 degrees Fahrenheit, and 63 degrees Celsius, 145.4 degrees Fahrenheit, under direct sunlight. Earlier this week, highs touching 51 degrees Celsius hit parts of India, making it the hottest place on the planet. However, Kuwait has smashed that, weighing in with an astonishing 52 degrees Celsius. Kuwait on Saturday recorded the highest temperatures in the world, reaching 52.2 degrees Celsius in the shadows and 63 degrees Celsius under direct sunlight, according to Al-Khabas newspaper. Kuwait yesterday recorded the first death as a direct result of the unbearable temperatures, reports Al Rai Daily. The Daily added, the victims died in Surrey as a result of heat stroke. When the operations room of the Interior Ministry received a report, security and the emergency medical personnel rushed to the spot and found the man dead. Some of his work tools were found next to the body. The forensic report showed that man died as a result of sunstroke because of his prolonged stay under the direct heat of the sun. And here we are. This is from the Washington Post. Says more or less the same thing. And Sam Karana on Arctic News reports a temperature of 49.8 degrees Celsius or 121 degrees Fahrenheit forecast. This is a forecast for Lhasa in Tibet on June the 26th, 219. And in India, Bihar heatwave kills 184 people. Section 144, whatever that is, imposed in Gaya. I've been to Gaya. It's a hellhole. The deaths have been majorly reported from Aurangabad, Gaya and Nawada districts. With the pollution, I mean, the pollution just has to be seen to be believed, and how it is possible to live in those conditions just escapes me. And then another headline, the same heat wave kills 49 in Bihar in 24 hours. 49 people died in 3 districts of the Magadha district that has been hit by drought. And just going way up north, Pole expedition, starving Arctic bear dodges traffic in Russian city after walking nearly 1,000 miles in the wrong direction from its natural habitat. I wonder what the climate change deniers will make of that. Lost and starving polar bear was spotted wandering in amongst traffic in Russia. Motorists in the nickel mining city of Norilsk watched as the beast dodged cars. The bear was thought to have walked nearly 1,000 miles from the Russian Arctic Ocean shore, and the animal appeared too weak to attack humans and was seen scavenging for food. And here goes a photograph from the Guardian article on this. Oh, here we are. Sorry, I've got the the photograph here. And then from CNN, future summers will smash temperature records every year, and they go through and show how the human mind is not wired to cope with problems like this. And then finally, I think another dangerously hot summer seems likely in Europe. Europeans hoping for a cooler summer in 2019 after their record in 2018 won't have much hope. So there we are. I think this all taken together paints a pretty dire situation, and we're hardly into the winter down here, down under, and there is no winter, and then God knows what the northern summer is going to bring. It's anybody's guess, but I have my suspicions. Anyway, that's my roundup from today. This is Seymour Rocks reporting from down under.